Hi there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome. If you didn't know me already, hi, I'm Dr. Duncan, Director of Fine Arts here at GISD. I'm also a faculty member of Galveston College. And you're here because you've signed up for Music Appreciation, which is a dual credit course between Galveston College and Galveston ISD. Music appreciation. Something we do all the time. There's not a person among us who's not grown up with music. From before we could talk, we've had music. Before we could even say mama and dada, somebody held us in their arms and sang us a lullaby. Somebody rocked us and hummed a melody, and we responded. Human beings respond to music. There's something about music that is absolutely essential to all of us. With possibly one exception, every culture in the world throughout history has made music. That one exception is the culture of the profoundly deaf, and because they physically cannot hear, they can't experience music the same way everybody else does. But even the profoundly deaf can experience the rhythm of drums, the pulsing that you actually feel in our body of music. Even the profoundly deaf. The problem is when we start to talk about music, and it's a problem of the fact that we don't have words to talk about where we all know what they mean. Oh, we say things all the time. I'll give you an example, one that I hear and I've heard ever since I started teaching music. I like this because it's got a good beat. Well, academically in music, beat is defined as a regularly recurring rhythmic pulse. So, that's beat. And beat can go faster or slower. You've seen a metronome or heard a metronome, you know, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. I can turn it up faster, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, or slower, tick tock, tick tock. But that's what beat is for a musician when we talk about what beat is. But there is something that we listen to and we say, yeah, I like that. I really. What musicians will call that is a rhythm pattern. And we like rhythm patterns. We like rhythm patterns a lot. If we just had beat, a lot of things wouldn't be that much fun. Yeah, we could still dance to them. We could still do some stuff. And there's some very, very simple musics that have cool basic beats that we like, that we love dancing to. You go out and you dance with your friends. Yeah. But then we can take something with a little more difference to it. And that has more going on. And we can layer that with other things and have more and more and more going on. And by the time we're done with it, we have some things that are really, really interesting and fun to listen to. And I would say they have really great rhythm patterns rather than it has a good beat. But that's one of the problems, is that we don't have a common language outside of academia to talk about music. So, one of the things we're going to do through this semester is talk about music. We're going to listen to music and talk about music, and listen to music and talk about music, until you can understand what it is that you hear in such a way that you can explain it to somebody else. Because then music gets to be a lot of fun, and sharing music gets to be a lot of fun. Well, there are 5 things in every musical composition that we're going to talk about that happen. We have pitch, intensity, timbre, duration, and form. And each one of those things is a fundamental concept that can be talked about in very, very complicated ways. Now we're going to start down here, and we're going to talk about pitch, intensity, timbre, duration, and form, and their most fundamental. And as the semester goes along, we're going to ratchet it up, and you're going to know more about each of those things, and more about each of those things, and more about each of those things, until you can talk with just about anybody about music in a way that makes sense. So let's just examine for a few minutes each of those fundamental concepts. Let's start with the first concept, which is pitch. Technically speaking, pitch is a function of wavelength, or vibrations per second, which are inversely proportionate to one another. For those of you who are physics geeks, that all made absolutely perfect sense. And for those of you that aren't, you're just kind of going, huh? It's a definition that doesn't really help us much unless we're in a physics lab. But if I said pitch is that part, that element of music which is high and low, bingo, we understand. One of those is higher than the other one is. And we've known since we were little kids the difference between high and low. There's actually this really cool physical relationship between that. If I take and I make the same instrument in two sizes, and you should be able to see that this one, which is called a Garklein, is half the size of this one. When I make it half the size, but I construct it exactly the same way, it'll play up the octave. So here's the recorder that most of you played back when you were in the 4th grade. I cut that in half, I make the wavelengths half as long, I make the vibrations go by twice as fast. Now this one's much smaller and my big hands have a hard time fitting. But it's twice as high. I can also take the same idea and make it larger. And if I make it larger, it's going to be, yes, lower. And the physics buffs and the engineers among you are going to say, oh, that's a really cool thing. The octave that we talk about, where the note becomes the same note again, but it's an octave higher, is cutting something in half its length. So if I cut it in half its length again, now it's a quarter its original length, it's 2 octaves. If I cut it half again, an eighth of its original length, now it's 3 octaves higher. If you're into physics, that's really neat. If you're not into physics, but you just want to play that on the piano, then you understand A 440, 440 vibrations per minute is right here. The air is vibrating 440 vibrations per second. If I make it 880, it goes up the octave. If I make it 220, it goes down the octave, 110, down the octave further from there. So pitch has that concept of being higher or lower. That's the most fundamental thing you need to know about pitch. Of course, there's 2 other things that come right along behind that really quickly when you're first learning music. One is melody or tune. If you take a succession of notes, a succession of pitches that are related to one another, and you play them one after another, you have a melody. That's one note following another. Every tune you know is made up of one note following another. If I play notes at the same time, like you can on piano, and you can on guitar, and you can on organ, and a number of instruments, I can play harmony together. If you take my music theory class, you'll discover what it is that makes the notes sound good with one another and why we've used them for all of these years together. And from Bach's time to the stuff that's on the radio today, the same music theory works. It's all physics derived. So, notes happening at the same time are harmony. Notes happening one after another are melody. That's a very simple understanding of that, and we're going to add to that as the year goes on. And those are both part of pitch. Okay, the next one everybody gets really, really quickly. Intensity. Pause for a second. Think loudness. Some people say, oh, it was really intense. I was so into the... Don't worry about the emotion of it. Loudness. We're going to measure that as decibels. It's a whole other physics thing you don't want to get into. But some things are louder than others. If I take my seed pod shaker here and I very gently tap it, I get this cute little light sound. If I give it a good whack, this little seed pod is loud enough to get your attention. So soft and loud. And every gradation in between. That can be really, really effective to us in music. The changing, crescendoing, which is getting louder, decrescendoing, which is getting softer, holding on the same dynamic level, the same loudness. I can get your attention sometimes better by being quiet than by being loud. And if you've been to a concert where they have this sort of really quiet section, you'll hear the whole audience get quiet, and everybody starts leaning forward in their seats so they can hear better. They pay better attention. And sometimes you do something that is really quite loud just to get everybody's attention. Percussionists are real good for that. They like a really big whomp from a bass drum. And that will make all the little old ladies sitting in the front row sit right up and wake up. So, intensity is loudness. Timbre. T-I-M-B-R-E. Looks like timbre, but pronounce it timbre. It's a stolen word. We borrow it from the French because we didn't have a good word for it in English. Timbre is the quality of sound that makes it identifiable, that gives it color. I came from a fairly large family. I had one set of my cousins. There were 12 kids in the family. And my grandmother was amazing. We could call Grandma up. This was back in the days of, old-fashioned phones. We'd call her up, "Hi, Grandma," and she would answer with our name. She knew every grandchild's color of voice. She could tell who we were. In music, we use that to be able to tell what instruments are. This is a recorder, a flauto dolce, sweet flute. That's a particular color of sound that we can hear. The piano has a different color. Now, one of the cool things about electronic instruments is that we can switch those sounds. One of my favorite sounds, if I can find it here, is called the vibraphone. And that is normally a metallophone, a metal barred percussion instrument, but it's just a great sound. And that's just really a fun sound. What about an organ? Maybe a guitar sound. Now, the cool thing with computers and synthetic instruments is that we can hear sounds, have access to sounds that we normally wouldn't. I normally couldn't just hire an orchestra to play a piece of music that I've written, but using my Finale program, I can write out a whole band, a whole choir, a whole orchestra, and be able to get those basic sounds. Now, when we want to have speech, when we want to have vocal music where there are words, We can't just use the sounds that are ahs and ohs and oohs. We actually have to add human beings to it. And that's yet another color of sound that we can have. Duration. Duration's length of time. Some people are going to mess this one up, so I'm going to start you right now. Here's one of the common mistakes. Duration. It was 3 minutes and 57 seconds long, and that was long. No. Duration for me is not the time the whole piece of music was, but it's the comparison of time between one note and another note. I'll give you a really simple version. If we have 4/4 time, we have 4 beats in the measure, and the quarter note gets a beat. So if I said, I want to hear 4 quarter notes, 1, 2, ready, go. So I've gotten 4 notes. Okay, I want to hear quarter, eighth, eighth, quarter, eighth, eighth. 1, 2, ready, go. Wow, the rhythm pattern got more interesting. Not terribly a lot more interesting, but more interesting than just the 4 quarter notes was, because I added to that. I can put things in 3/4 time, where we'll count from 1 to 2 to 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Lots of music written in 3. My favorite rhythm patterns come from India, and they are asymmetric. They're not normal. 1, 2, 3, 4, left, right, left, right. Great for dancing, great for marching. Titina, dina, dina, titina, dina, dina. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mere hridaya tunne tunaya, mere hirajo tunne tunaya. Well, for me, that's just a lot of fun. And some of you are out there going, I can't find where 1 is. Because it's more complicated. You like complicated rhythms? You like complicated meters? Cool. We'll talk about those as we talk about duration. Duration has to do with how notes fit against one another and what time we're in. Most of what we're going to listen to will either be in some version of duple, 2s, or some version of triple, 3s. So 4 is a version of duple. 1, 2, 3, 4 is hard to tell from 1, 2, 1, 2. But 1, 2, 3 doesn't sound the same. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Try to count 4 to that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And it just doesn't fit. So when you're listening to a piece of music, you might want to count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 to see if it fits. Form. Form is either the most complicated part of this or the simplest part of this, depending on the time period we're in. The easiest form there is direct repetition. And every one of you have heard this. Have you ever heard a song where every verse of the song is sung to exactly the same music? That's just a repetition. Then we have a form that every one of you knows that I will call song form, where we have a verse and a chorus. And the verses tend to change and the chorus comes back and is the same. Musically, they're 2 separate things, an A and a B. In any grouping of just A melodically and just B melodically, any way you put it together, whether it's A, B, or AAB, or AAAB, no matter how you put it together, it's still a song form. And that's one of the earliest forms we created as human beings, because it works. Oh, they get a lot more complicated over the years, and they get to a point where you just go like, don't worry about the form anymore. That was a sonata rondo. I'll tell you later when we get to that. I hated having to figure out what a sonata rondo was, because half of it looks like a sonata and half of it looks like a rondo, and it makes you want to hunt down the composer who wrote that and do terrible things to them. No, we're not going to do that. So let me go back and say, what were those 5 simple things we were talking about? Pitch, high and low. Intensity, loudness. Timbre, color of the sound. Duration, time and rhythm. And form, how do the melodies interact? And we're going to talk about those things over and over and over again. And every week I'm going to give you an assignment and say, tell me what you hear. And you're probably going to have something from each of those that you can say for me. I hope that makes some sense. I'm going to be putting a lot of examples up. There'll be a lot of music linked to on YouTube. Some absolutely wonderful performances are available out there. Don't feel like that's the only music you can listen to. If you decide that we're listening to some obscure Renaissance composer and you go, wow, that was really cool, and you want to listen to another hour and a half of related things by that composer, do so. You're not required to only do what's on the list. You can listen to things way beyond that. And I hope that you're going to find that there's a lot of things you've never heard before that you like. I'm betting you're going to find there's been some things that you've never heard before that you don't like. And that's okay too. You're not required to like the music. You're required to be able to talk about it, to be able to make sense out of it so that you can explain, well, Dr. Duncan, I really don't like this because, and then give me a really good reason. No problems with that. I am not going to expect you to like the things I like, and I'll try and be honest and tell you when there's something that we're playing that I didn't like when I first heard it, or I still don't like. Make sense? I hope it does. I hope you're having an absolutely wonderful day. Let's have a super semester together. I know it's weird doing this, sitting here at my desk talking to a camera rather than talking to students. I'd rather have you in the classroom talking with me live. But COVID-19 has us all doing things we've never done before. You have a great day. Listen to something you enjoy today and have a wonderful time.